Thưa quý vị, 10 năm chìm trong ma túy, từng bị HIV/AIDS, từ một doanh nhân thành đạt, thành một người mất tất cả mọi thứ, tiền bạc, tài sản, gia đình chỉ trong một ngày, trở thành một người vô gia cư lang thang, nay đây, mai đó. Một tháng phải phục vụ 50 đến 100 người đàn ông để đổi lấy ma túy. Cuộc đời lâm vào bế tắc, tan nát, đổ vỡ. Đó là câu chuyện về cuộc đời của anh Jeremy Siegfried. Điều gì đã khiến cuộc đời anh thay đổi mãi mãi? Kính mời quý vị cùng đến với chương trình Today Saved by Grace với lời làm chứng rất thật và cảm động của anh Jeremy để có câu trả lời cho riêng mình. Tố Uyên xin kính mời quý vị cùng đón xem.
I was about 5 years old when I first came to know the Lord. My parents left a life where they were partying and having a good time, and decided that they did not want their son to grow up in that type of lifestyle and to know that type of life. So my uncle had invited my parents back to church, and I became a Christian growing up in the church at about age 5. And then I grew up in church up until my senior year of high school. Well, I had left the life where I had loved the Lord. By 18, I was actually singing in the church, doing praise, and I lived a really good life. I was close to the Lord, and I walked very fruitfully and faithfully with Him. And I decided to walk in a way that was of the world. I wanted to enjoy the things of the world. I wanted to experience life that I'd never known before and only heard about through previous stories that my family and everybody else had talked about. When I found out that that was not the life that was worth living in a very harsh, hard way, that was really not worth giving up. It was my senior year in high school. I was about 18, and I hadn't drank, smoked. I just led a pretty consistent life with the Word of God and my love for the Lord at that time. And I went to college, and got involved in the party scene, and I started drinking quite a bit. Had great friends that I loved dearly, very dearly, and just kind of decided to live a life that was not of God, but in the world. I partied quite a bit, pretty much anything that came around, and life started to deteriorate. The freedom that I had in Christ before, where I felt loved, had gone away. The world was turning on me, and the people that I surrounded myself with in life in general was turning on me, and it just kept on digressing that way. Every time I had an opportunity to rise above, I got knocked back down. When I was a child, at about the age of 3, I had told my mom I liked boys, not girls, which kind of struck me, like, how would a 3-year-old ever know something such as that? And what had happened was I had what I called a silent father. He was there but not there. He didn't really want anything to do with me. He was just an authoritative person that if I didn't live his way, I found out very quickly, what the other end would be. So I tended to hang around my mom, and ended up getting what I thought were tendencies to go one way that led to what the world kind of knows as a gay lifestyle. I kind of went towards that side of things, and about age 13 I started getting promiscuous, and I kind of dove into that. Then I felt so guilty, I told my parents, and unfortunately at that point in time my dad sat me down for a couple hours, and with my father, when he's talking, you don't talk, and you have to look right in his eyes. And when he's done talking, that's it. Conversation's done, there's no more to do with it. And out of that 2 or 3 hours, all I remember him saying is, that's just what dogs do. And at that point, I shut my sexuality off. And there was no sexuality, no thought, no nothing, because I was like, okay, I understand. I cannot be this way. I cannot do that. Then I leave for college, and I worked for pretty big company down here, and I had a boss that had hit on me and given me kind of ultimatum, if I need to do this, otherwise, So I went along with it, and it brought back out that tendency that I had taken a hold of when I was 13. And then I started kind of messing around with that. I decided, no, this is not the way I want things to go, because I was pretty much in the closet hiding from that. And I had an opportunity to move back home. And I moved back up to San Francisco, and I worked in the city. So when I did that, I went to the city. When I was working there, I had met my first lover on the train. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, this fits the line. I mean, I'm getting the feelings. I'm getting everything. Everything feels just like it did when I was young, and how I feel like I really, truly am. So I actually just came out and said, yeah, I am gay. And we started a relationship. We were together for like 3 years. And that took like 6 months to happen, because I remember telling my parents, and they weren't happy, but they accepted it. I come from a Christian family, so when I did tell my mother, of course, she was crying, and my father was okay to accept it. What they told me was, the big part was, we love you, we don't love the sin you're in, but we're not going to judge you and tell you that we don't love you and we're casting you out, because the love of Christ tells us that that's just not what we can do. So they accepted me for who I was. They said, we can't accept who you're with or what you do, but they never treated me any different. And it's unfortunate, a lot of people that live in the gay lifestyle don't have that opportunity. They go through families where they come from a church background or Christian background or whatever it is, and their family casts them aside and says, that's it, we're cutting you off. We want nothing to do with you. You're a sinner. Get away from us. And unfortunately, a lot of the gay world has come across that horrible hardship. And I never had that. My parents were very understanding and acceptable to say, we still love you, and we're going to love you through this. And they never called me out on it. Once in a while they would say something, but they loved me, and they loved my lovers at the time, and they graced me through it. They really graced me through it and showed me the love of Christ. Through that, I had a couple different lovers, and then I had gone to Florida as a real estate investor. Everything went well. 2008, we all know how the stock market went, the real estate market went there, and I lost everything. Lost everything. A lot of money, a lot of property. I lost everything, family stuff, and I had an opportunity, and someone had brought meth up to me. And being so devastated, I went ahead and grabbed a hold of it, and I remember grabbing that bag because I had a touch back a couple of years with it. And I remember looking at that bag saying, if I touch this, I just know I'll probably never be able to put this down again. But I was so broken and lost everything I had in life, and I had nothing because I had left God. I was hopeless. So as everything's falling apart in my life, I grabbed that bag and I start to use it, and it never stopped. So when you're a user of methamphetamines, or as I had been a user in my previous years, you tend to learn how to use without coming down, and you keep on using and compounding that and using. So at that point, I became a meth user, and that lasted for about 10 years. When I lost everything in real estate in Florida, I moved back to the Bay Area. And when I had come home, I kind of made myself homeless in San Francisco because I did not want to live with my family. They were going through things, and I didn't want to be under that control that I had to deal with at home. So I couch surfed and kind of hoarded myself around San Francisco to, if I could get the drugs, I would sleep around and do whatever it took, to where I would be with more than 50 to 100 men in a month. And what happened was I was staying at a drug house, and I got a call from San Francisco saying, we need you to come into the clinic. And I ended up going into the clinic, found out that I was HIV positive. And that was really hard. So I just kept on with my destructive lifestyle. At that point, staying in that drug house, I started hearing things. And I thought that living in a drug house, oh, the cops are coming around. You know, they're going to bust these people. And so I was like, okay, I want to hear what's going on. And so I thought I was hearing different police stations in different houses. And they were like trying to look in on this house. So I was trying to hear it without paying attention to it. Well, what happened is I was actually hearing demons. And I wanted to hear it so bad that one of them came as an angel of light and asked me to be a part of this, what was going on. And when I had accepted, at that point, the voices and the constant torment completely came over me, and it never stopped for about 10 years, until about recently. And what I didn't realize is that the methamphetamine, which is a conduit for demons to involve and to infest themselves in you, is what I had accepted in my life. And when that had happened, I had met my last lover, and he took me under his wing, and he pretty much took care of me because I could not walk across the street without getting lost. I couldn't go to the bathroom on my own. I was a complete vegetable without him. And so he took care of me. Most people wouldn't have noticed what was going on because I could hide it so well. But there's many times where I would walk by an insane asylum and go, why am I not walking in here? And it was by the grace of God that I was able to survive through so much. I just remember I was laying on the couch, and there was like doily type of curtains, and there was a light coming from the outside, and it was nighttime. And I could see a presence of what I thought was an angel because I could see it through the doily curtains, but it wasn't. It was that. And I just remember her asking questions of, you know, acting like she was an angel, a real true angel, and wanting to accept, and, do you want to be a part of, what we are doing in life, and, so you don't get in trouble, and we don't want to harm you, and just filling me full of lies, but kind of appeasing to the mindset that, hey, I want to be on the side of whatever's going on, so that way I could be a part of something. I never felt like I was a part of anything in my life. I was always outcast. I was the only child all my life. I was the only child, and I grew up alone most of all my life. Never really had any real true friends. I grew up in church, but I never had anybody close to me. And I felt accepted by something, especially when you're going through being so broken and nobody wants you except for what they can use you for. I felt like I could be a part of something. And the part of something that wanted me to be a part of them was something I didn't know I was asking to be a part of. And it was pretty devastating. It was very devastating. Well, I had just moved to Portland, and my lover moved with me at the time. But he had met, we were friends at that point, but we moved together to Portland. And he had moved out because he couldn't take my antics. I had no desire to leave methamphetamines. I did not want to not be high. I was just so broken, that was the only thing I had. And I still don't understand that now that God has taken such good care of me. But I know that when you're so broken and you have nothing else, you street medicate, whether it be marijuana, whether it be alcohol, whether it be whatever it is. When you decide to hold on and grab onto something, it's because of some trauma, something has happened in your life. And letting go of that makes you feel empty and alone again. Even if that street medication, what you're doing, is so harmful to you and you hate it so much, letting go of that, you just don't have control because you're out of control. So what had happened is my lover had left me and I was by myself. So I was like, oh, I can keep going. And that wasn't the case. I ended up getting a job. And it wasn't really anything great, so I ended up becoming homeless. But my aunt took me in, and I stayed with her for about a year, and she's finally like, you have to find your own place, you have to get a new job. And so I finally actually did find a legitimate job, and I had got my own place in downtown Portland. When I got into downtown Portland and got my new place, I kept on in that lifestyle for about another 6 or 8 months. And it was December 26th, 2015, that I was in an episode of meth psychosis. And I was doing my own crazy thing. And all of a sudden, I remember being in the bathroom, and I heard very auditorily, and it wasn't the over 30 demons that had infested me, because I don't think I told you about that. When I accepted that in, I had over 30 demons at all times. It never let up, constant torment, just ripping apart, all crazy all the time. At that point, I had heard auditorily, but this one wasn't one of those. It was such a kind, loving voice, and it said, "Go sit down on the couch, please." And I was like, no. It said again, "Jeremy, go sit down." And I was like, I don't want to, because at this point, I didn't know who is what, or whatever it could be. I'm just used to hearing everything all the time. By the third time, I knew it was such a presence of love and something that was nothing that I never felt before. And I went and sat on the couch. And when I sat on the couch, the TV came on, and TBN got turned on. And a preacher started preaching, and I just was mesmerized by the love of God. And it was Jesus speaking right to me. Everything that I never had, everything that had been taken away that I thought I had, everything that I needed and never knew or had an idea that I wanted or could have a need be filled by him, was coming through on TBN. He had a special message just for me. And I remember at that point, I just got down on my hands and knees, and I started telling God, I said, "I'm just so sorry for what I've done. I want to give my life back to you. Would you please forgive me?" And everything that went through it. And I was just in hysterics, bawling, and just in gratefulness, and still, and at the same time, just feeling a disaster, but the disaster did not hurt. I felt hope for the first time. Hope that I never understood I could feel. And from that point on, I started reading the Bible, not the Bible, an app on my phone called Devotions. I gave a morning and an evening devotion. And I started reading that to start. And I started watching TBN about 5-6 hours a day. And God started filling me up and teaching me new things. And then it was about June of 2016. And I finally said, "You know what, God?" I said, "I've been doing this for a while, and I'm ready for more. I could tell you want more from me, but I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go, but I know you want me to read your word." So went, grabbed the Bible, sat down on my couch, and I said, "God, I don't know where to start. I don't know what you want me to do with the word. There's so much of it. What do you have that you can show me that I need right now?" And right then, he opened up to Romans, and it spoke about homosexuality. Now, I had always thought that it was okay because of being at age 3, the tendencies that I had. Who would ever think at age 3? And everything that the world says and teaches you about, you have this, or you do this, you do that, it all fits that accord. Then, at the time when I was at that drug house, I read a Bible called Jesus, the Bible, and Homosexuality. And it took every verse in the Bible and explained how homosexuality was correct. That's how I believed and chose that it was going to be that way. But when God opened up the word to Romans, I remember reading that, and then his glory just came over me, almost like someone hit you with a tidal wave. And I remember looking up, and everything was like crystal clear, perfect in unison. Colors were brighter than I'd ever seen, and there was just like this perfect sense of knowing who I actually was. And I remember going, after all this time, I'm not gay, God. I'm not gay. I've gone through my whole life thinking or not thinking, but you are telling me in your perfect love that I'm not. You made me so special that you're going to show me who I am and not what I've ever known before. Thank you. So I called my mom, and God had just came to her exact same time. And we started talking and sharing that, and my family rejoiced. And it's been a journey ever since then.
Quý vị có muốn sống một cuộc đời hạnh phúc hay không? Quý vị có muốn thay đổi cuộc đời của mình từ bất an, buồn đau, tuyệt vọng, thành bình an, vui mừng, hy vọng không? Giống như anh Jeremy, anh đã đến với Chúa Giêsu và cuộc đời được đổi mới. Còn quý vị thì sao? Còn chần chờ gì nữa mà không chạy đến với Chúa Giêsu nhân từ ngay hôm nay? Chúa đang mong chờ quý vị và Ngài rất yêu quý vị.
I love her. Wow. I love her very much. Rebecca and I met when we were 15 at the church. And I don't really remember her all that much. I remember some of her here and there. We weren't as much as friends as she says we were, that I remember. Well, in my conversion, when God had came to me and told me that I wasn't gay in that June of 2016, she had been searching for me. And God told her, go find Jeremy now. And it was like, I want to say July, about 2016, June or July, right around then. She got my phone number, called me, and we just started talking, and it was really interesting. I felt like there was somebody I could talk to, because there was still nobody I could talk to. You know, I started telling people besides my mother, but nobody wanted to have anything to do with me, and there was not really much I could talk about to anybody. So I started talking to her a little bit about it, but she had her things she was doing in life and going on with, and I had mine, but I still had somebody I could start talking to, so it was nice. Well, unfortunately, she had the things that she was going through in life, so we kind of lost touch, and I was still going through my stuff in life. Because at the same time, even though I was in the process of letting go of methamphetamines, because it wasn't, when Jesus came and found me, it wasn't just like a one deal, I'm done, I'm all healed, and everything's all done. No, it was a process. It was a process of God coming in, cleaning up my heart, because it was at that moment that I knew I didn't want the drugs anymore. I always wanted them and didn't want to give them up. But it was when he came and found me that I wanted to, and found a desire in my heart to live for something more. But he had so much work to do in me that it took a little bit of time. So Rebecca went her way, I went my way, and that was about 3 years ago. So in that time, it's been about 4 years now. It took God about 4 years to clean me up and get clean. And I had got to where in the last year or so, I would be clean for about 6 month stints. It went from I couldn't be clean more than 2 weeks to about 6 months. Because I would get so overwhelmed by the enemy that he would overwhelm me, and I would go and start using drugs again just to get him to back off of me, even though I didn't want it. So it was a process I had to go through. So 4 years have passed that God had cleaned me up, and he needed to work on her just as much as he worked on me. So I had finally given them up fully, and this last summer I finally had gotten a job in a church and started to work and give my life more and more fully in position to where I knew I wanted to be in ministry or something to do with working for God. And I wasn't sure what or when, but doing something for God. So I joined a church. They brought me into the worship team. And then they had brought me into position to running Sunday services. And then I became the wedding facilitator, because that's kind of my background, that I do private gigs and stuff like that. So I started working for the church, and things started going well. And then in this last, I want to say it was April, I had decided that, hey, since now I am fully done with everything. I mean, I smoked, when I wasn't using meth, it was marijuana, because that's what I grew up with after at about 18. It was like my whoopee. It was my blanket when there was nobody else there. So it took a process of letting go of everything. And it was actually May 11th that I finally was able to give up cigarettes, because I started smoking cigarettes at age 18 as well. So by May 11th, I finally had gotten rid of everything off the table. Everything completely was finally done. God had done his work to where I knew in my heart that who I was, and I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me, because what had bound me was now my choice to control or to not control. It did not have control over me. I can control it. God had given me that power and strengthened me in enough time that I was able to stand up by that day and finally say, enough of everything is done. And that was the last day. And from that point, he took my life, and he went from here to way above the highest ceiling you can ever find. And that's when Rebecca came back into my life. He brought her right back into my life. And I started talking to her. I was like, hey, are you still looking to do ministry? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, well, I want to do this. I want to do that. I have, God's putting this on my heart. I want to do this, that. So we were talking here and there and so on and so forth. And then it was about the middle of June that I really started to get serious about this. And she started to feel the pull of God too. I did as well. And then she's like, started talking about relationship. I'm like, hold on. Hold on there. I said, I wear this ring because I'm married to God. I'm in ministry with God. I said, I love you. We can be married in ministry, but I'm married to God, and I don't plan on putting anybody else above God. That was June 27th. July 3rd, when I had woken up that morning, the night before, I started getting the feelings that God was talking in my heart and putting in my heart, well, this is why you should love her, and this is why you love her, and this is why you love her. And I'm trying to pick out every single reason why I couldn't love her, why this is not possible, why I don't want to, all this stuff. And that went through the night, and in the morning when he woke me back up, he started again on me that way. But this time, it was like a fountain that he just rushed right over me again with love for her. And I could not point out one reason why I didn't love her as much as I love Christ. And when I realized about 3 hours into it, what I was talking to God about, I realized I love this woman, and this woman was built before the foundations of earth. God knit her together for me in my life. And I was just head over heels in love with her. So ever since then, we've just been growing together. And she lives in Arizona. I live in Portland. So it keeps us apart, but we have such a beautiful, wonderful relationship. I get emotional thinking about her because I love her so much. And what's beautiful is it's not a love that I've ever known, like when I had lovers, which was for sexual reason or I needed a home or whatever reason it was. This is the love that I was able to love and put God first, as she did, because she loves the Lord with all her heart and soul. She puts God first, like I love to put God first. And when he put us together, we can finish each other's sentences, what you hear about everybody else. But the thing is, without me knowing, but thinking something, she'll call up and answer my questions. And I will do the same for her. We know through the Spirit of God, we're connected by God, because we don't try and find happiness in each other or anything in each other. We find our completeness in God. And because of that, God is in the middle of our relationship, and he makes that bridge to where we can see each other wholly and fully together. And we desire nothing but God's will. So it's a blossoming, beautiful relationship. And I just absolutely love her. Yeah. It is impossible. But then there's our Creator. who makes all things possible. And if you don't know who created you or what you're created for, then how can you know anything? We're lost in this world without knowing. We hear what science says, we hear what the books say, we hear what TV says, we hear what everybody else says, or we think we hear what we want to say, which is really your own desires, because we have free will. But when you want to put your life in God's hands and truly trust that who made us knows us, and if we don't even know ourselves and we're searching, we can trust him. Because if we're looking ourselves, we're going to trust other things. We'll trust drugs, we'll trust alcohol, we'll trust people, we'll trust any other religion. Because religion says, if you do this, then you get that. God's not religion. God says, I did this because I love you, so I am going to show you what is. And it is by the grace of God that there's a verse that says, he predestines us, and he who he calls, he predestines, and who's predestined is justified. And the verse goes on. And I can look and understand that I'm not called out by my sin. I'm called out by who I am. It's a process of working through a lot of times, but it's a process that God has allowed me to go through so that I can relate to others. I enjoyed going along the streets and talking to people in brokenness. I was homeless, on drugs. I've had 3 DUIs. I was an alcoholic. I'm pretty much the biggest sinner there is. And God still loved me through that. If he can come down and show and pour out his love and tell me who I am and pour into my life nothing but love and not condemn me for everything I've done, there's no greater love than that. So with that, I wanted to give my life to that love. So the process of getting to know God and him to show me who I am through his word and to give my life to everything that he says slowly roots that out. You know, God is the gardener. And when you have a gardener in a garden, you have the soil. And he's got to get down, and when you have a seed, you plant that in the ground. Well, you don't just plant it on the top, you got to plant it way down there in the soil. So he had to take my soil, which is contaminated, clean it up, but to clean it up, first he planted his root of love way down in my soul. And he allowed that to take root. And that root, when you have something growing in a garden, it takes a little while before you see it sprout up and show, itself. So it took, when he found me, to do a lot of work on that soil. And what I found out my job is to listen to him and keep digging out the weeds in my soil. So that slow process slowly grew into what I am becoming now in Christ. So to say that I am bound by, this substance or this way, or, I am gay because I'm predestined, or, it's intuitive, or whatever else. That's saying that you are defined by that. I know that I don't want to be defined by nothing but love. And I've never found love in anything else I ever did except for through Jesus. True love, true peace. I was a vegetable. They deemed me schizophrenic in the hospitals. And they put me on antipsychotics for many, many years and all kinds of things. I'm HIV positive as well. So I've gone through a lot of heavy medications and all kinds of stuff like that. And those things defined me. But when Christ defined me, he poured his love in, and then there was a point in time where he's like, Jeremy, I want you to go ahead and take those medications that are not working, toss them out. I got off of every single medication except for my HIV meds, which, by the way, my doctor has told me recently, because I'm going to be getting married. I said, I'm concerned about, I have some concerns. Am I going to pass on HIV to my fiance, my wife, and my children? What's going to go on with that? There's some concerns there. And the love of God, my doctor told me, he's like, no, Jeremy, you're actually one of 25 of my clients that the medications you're on and the way that you're viral and everything is you will not be able to pass on HIV. It is not even in your system because your DNA has been replicated with this medication. And he said, as long as you stay on this medication, it will not come back and rear itself up, and you cannot even pass it on to her, nor will it be in your semen to produce for a child, so you can go ahead and have children. So, knowing you can have children and then love somebody and not pass on a disease, get off of every medication that never helped in the first place, and then clear me up to where I have nothing but peace and clarity and a vision of love that shows me who I am, what I can do, and how I can do it in the fullness of the love of God. That's the definition right there of peace. He's the peace that passes all understanding. And drugs didn't do that for me. It didn't get me my job back or my finances back. It didn't get me the right love. It did not get me the right situation. Everything took me down. But Christ went down to the depths of hell, dragged me out of there, and brought me back to life. And I'm just overwhelmed that he would even bless me with somebody like Rebecca to spend my life with. And I'm so grateful. How could I not want to give the fullness of my life for God? Nobody else has done that for me. Nobody. Nobody has. There's nothing you have to do, nothing you have to say, nothing you have to work at, nothing you have to choose. There's nothing you can make happen. It's not a choice you make. It's the choice of the one who created you, chooses you. So if you feel pressing on your heart that you're not sure about your life, or these things that you've gone through, or something that you feel defines you or something, it's not still what you're searching for in life. Know that Jesus is standing right there with you, waiting for you to recognize that he's there with forgiveness and love, just waiting for you to say, you know what? God, if you're real, would you show me you're real? Show me that you love me. And can you make happen what nothing else in life will ever make happen, because nothing else can? And the moment you do that, and you're genuine in your heart about that, because he can see that, he will show you his love and who he truly is. And when you accept that, you're accepting Jesus into your heart. And when you accept him into your heart, that's the day life changes. And you can make the decisions, you can make the choices, and you can do the things that you've wanted to ever do or never thought you ever could. It might be a slow process, it might take time, but you got to remember, God chooses you. God chooses you because he loves you. He created you. He created you because he loves you. He just wants you to see that you're willing to acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord and that he is who he says he is. And when you realize that, he will do in you the work that you can't do. And together, symbiotically, you can become who you are truly meant to be. And that's what I'm walking in right now in my life.
Thưa quý vị, vừa rồi là lời làm chứng của anh Jeremy Siegfried trong chương trình Today Saved by Grace. Và Tô Uyên rất là mong là những quý vị nào đang sống trong cái cảnh gọi là bất an, tuyệt vọng, buồn chán, chán nản, không biết cái tương lai của mình như thế nào, không biết cái ý nghĩa của cuộc sống mình như thế nào. Mong là cái cuộc lời làm chứng của anh Jeremy Siegfried đã giúp quý vị có câu trả lời. Cảm ơn quý vị rất là nhiều và xin kính chúc quý vị có một ngày thật là hạnh phúc và bình an.